Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. So I wanted to talk about this real quick because this is something I saw tweeted out the other day by a buddy here of the channel, John Della Rose, and I wanted to address this quickly here. This is something that I wouldn't expect to see, right, in 2023, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by it, but it's something that's becoming much more rampant, even on the convention scene, right? As you can see here from this picture, this is somebody that took a picture next to a sign at Gen Con, which happened, I believe, last weekend, or I should say this past weekend. And look at what it says here, right? BIPOC Lounge. And if you read it here, it says, the Gen Con BIPOC Lounge is a dedicated space for Black, Indigenous, and people of color attendees to connect, relax, network, and utilize for career-focused endeavors. Attendees can find games and artwork created by BIPOC designers, a games library, scheduled events, refreshments, and a space to connect with fellow members of the BIPOC community. Professionals can utilize the room to meet with other industry professionals, obtain resources from companies seeking to work with and mentor BIPOC creators, sign up for one-on-one meetings, and recharge from working the show. So basically, this is something that they would say, oh, this is a safe space. This is a safe space for BIPOC people. It really makes me wonder, though, why this is even a thing at conventions when, in my view, conventions have always been a safe space, quote unquote, right? A quote unquote safe space for people that have these kinds of interest. I remember a time when conventions was a place for, I guess, what you would call, people that were either social outcasts because of their interests, right? Because either they were comic book geeks or anime nerds, whatever, weebs, whatever you want to call them. And we would go to these conventions to have a fun weekend, not worry about what's out there, right? What's out there in the real world, but have a fun weekend of enjoying things that we liked with other people that had the same kind of interest, right? Whether it be comics, video games, board games, or anime, whatever. And to me, I never saw the need for there to be segregation, right? Because the reason why you're at that convention is because, again, presumably, you all share the same interest, and you're just there to have fun for the weekend and be excited over the fact that you could share this interest with other people. There was many times that I would make, convention friends, right, where I would just go to a lot of local conventions, see a lot of the same people that I'd seen at other conventions, and we became friends like that, right? Convention buddies and stuff like that. And it was always good to see. It's almost like going to a reunion every so often, right? Of a small group of friends, maybe not people. And sometimes you make actually really good and lifelong friends. I mean, one of my good friends, my buddy James, who I met at a convention about probably 11 years ago, he's somebody that I consider a lifelong friend now. He's an artist. I met him while going to a convention. I was introduced to him by another friend of mine that was an artist, and we've been friends ever since. We've been really good friends ever since. So stuff like that happens, and we hold a lot of the same interests and things like that, and that's what these are. I mean, conventions are meeting places for people as well, that might not necessarily be able to go out, right, in other places, right? You don't anticipate people going to, say, a sports bar and talking about how much they love maybe, I mean, in some instances, I guess maybe it could happen maybe in a college sports bar or something like that. But at least at a time when it wasn't really commonplace to go out there and talk about geeky things and it being cool, like it's much more socially acceptable now than it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, right? Where people now, they can talk about these things much more openly without worrying about being ridiculed or mocked. When I was growing up as a kid, playing video games was a nerdy thing. It was something that was frowned upon by their kids that might either not have a game system or play, or maybe they were more into other things like sports and things like that. It was looked at as something that only nerds did, right? But now it's something, again, that is much more socially acceptable because the industry is so much bigger than it was back then when I was growing up as a kid. And I think that's fine. That's an okay thing. I'm not saying anything against it. I think it's great. But it's weird to me that you would want to sit here and segregate people in current day. I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's something that has a place at a convention, because to me, conventions have always been and will always be a welcoming place to all, despite what race you are, despite what you identify as, despite what orientation you are. None of those things that I have ever seen have ever mattered at a convention. Every convention that I've ever been to has been a welcoming place for all, the way it's always been, because again, it's a place for nerds or people that feel like geeks or nerds or whatever to congregate and have a weekend of fun where they share the things that they love most, right? The things that they're passionate about, the things that are their hobby. They get to enjoy that with others that are cut from that same cloth. So to me, stuff like this I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's one of these things that in the long run, it's going to hurt a convention like, it may not, I mean, because they've been established long enough, but I could see it potentially hurting them in the long run if this is the kind of stuff that they're going to continue to do. It rubs people the wrong way after a while, right? So, yeah, I think it's completely unnecessary, because, again, anybody that tries to say, like, oh, well, you see, BIPOC people, they feel out of place when they go to these conventions. Really? Because I've never seen that. That's never been my experience, and I've been to a lot of conventions. I've been going to conventions for over 20 years. I've gone to conventions from coast to coast. I've been to a lot of different conventions, and I have yet to go to, I mean, I can talk about the organization of a convention, right? If a convention wasn't organized correctly and was sloppily done and stuff like that. But as far in terms of a convention environment being hostile towards anybody for whatever reason, right? I have never seen that. I have never experienced that. Is it possible that it's happened before? Possibly, but that has never been my experience. In my 20 plus years of going to conventions, never been my experience. And I have yet, at least in terms of the people that I've met at a convention, have heard from any of them saying that they were discriminated against because of any of those things. And if that happened, well, shame on whatever convention did that. But yeah, again, I don't see how this is a productive thing or really conducive to putting on a good show. I think this is the kind of stuff that holds people back. And I would really like to know what would happen, right? If somebody went to this BIPOC lounge, right? Somebody that said, or if a white guy or girl went to this BIPOC lounge and decided, hey, at the door, because obviously they're probably not going to let them in, right? Because they're not a BIPOC person, right, on first glance. But what if that person said to them, hey, I identify as a BIPOC person? What are they going to do, right? Are they going to turn them away? Or are they going to validate their identity, right? Because these are the same kind of people that do that, right? They want validation, right? So are you going to dismiss that person? You're not going to validate them if they feel that they're actually a BIPOC person. You're going to turn them away. Better yet, what if a trans person came up, right? A trans white person came up and said, "Hey, I identify as as a woman of color, as a BIPOC. You going to let me in?" Are they going to turn them away? I would love to know what would happen if they were put in a situation like that. Would they really turn that away? Would they really turn that person away? Would they really discriminate against that person? And again, who gets to decide, right, what that person identifies with, right? Because that would be their mindset, right? That's something they're always advocating for. So these woke people, they always advocate for stuff like that. So I would really love to see what would happen if a trans white person went to this BIPOC lounge and say, "Hey, look, I identify as a BIPOC person, so I want to come into this lounge." If they would actually turn them away, probably, maybe not, I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see. Then you see this BIPOC social mixer. This is so ridiculous. I can't believe that there's conventions that do stuff like this, and to me, this is ridiculous, right? Considering that Gen Con is supposed to be like one of these more woke conventions. We remember some years back, they had Anita Sarkeesian speaking there, which to me was absolutely ridiculous because I don't think she has any place to be speaking on games of any form, either board or video games, because nothing she's ever been attached to from a gaming perspective has ever been remotely successful. So, but But that, it is what it is. I think I've said enough about this. I'd really like to know what you all think. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this BIPOC lounge. Like I said, this is something that's much more prevalent in conventions these days where they're doing stuff like this. I think it has no place at conventions because, again, I feel that most conventions out there right now, they're already a welcoming and quote-unquote safe space for everybody. Let me know what you think, though, in the comment section below. Until next time, you know how it goes. The hunt continues.